Chapter 66-76. But before leaving, he turned back and put the key of Cullinan in his pocket, and then went out. Charlie was curious and thought he was going to drive again. When he went to the window, he saw that his father-in-law didn't drive, but walked out of the courtyard with his wife Claire. He was still a little confused, wondering why his father-in-law turned around to take the car keys. However, seeing his back, he hung the keys on his belt with one hand. And he knew what his father-in-law meant. Although the car could not be driven out, the keys still had to be carried with him to help pretend. Seeing this scene, he could only sigh in his heart, it was you. Not long after, Charlie also left home alone. After he went out, he also scanned a shared bicycle and rode to the Olympic Center. He didn't really want to see any feng shui for Tawana, mainly because today's performance was exclusively sponsored by Changjing Automobile. Charlie wanted to see if there were any safety hazards left at the scene, especially when the audience began to enter this afternoon. There must be many people who bought high-priced tickets trying to get in. At that time, security checks, ticket checks, and person-to-person comparisons will become the top priority. If everything is in order and the accuracy of authentication and identification can be guaranteed, then scalpers and those who resell high-priced tickets will lose their living space. Charlie also wants to see the whole process with his own eyes. When he arrived at the Olympic Center, the entire venue was already crowded outside. He didn't understand why so many people had already gathered when the performance only started in the evening. After finally passing through the employee passage and entering the venue, Tawana's agent took him to the performance site. At this time, the stage had been completely built. The entire stage was in a T shape, and the height of the background was almost flush with the ceiling of the entire venue. The background of such a tall performance stage was actually an assembled front LCD screen. Tawana was standing at the front of the ladder platform at this moment. The on-site camera captured her full-body image, which was projected on the LCD background screen behind her. It felt like a mecha in a science fiction movie that was dozens of meters tall. A large group of staff were communicating with Tawana through the intercom. Tawana didn't take the microphone. However, she used the intercom on her waist to confirm the position and address other issues with the staff. The agent joked with Charlie. The fans outside are so enthusiastic. Earlier, he just used the microphone to test the sound and said check. And the fans outside began to cheer wildly. The huge cheers made it difficult for us to hear what the people facing each other were saying. So we don't even dare to make any sound through the sound system in the venue. Charlie smiled and nodded, it's understandable. After all, it is Tawana's first concert in China. It is very memorable for the fans. I was also surprised when I came here just now. So many people gathered here so early. It seems that they must be very tired. However, every one of these people seems to be very happy. I guess this is the power of idols. The agent nodded and asked him, Mr. Wade, are you going to visit here or go backstage to rest? Mr. Kennedy is backstage. The Kennedy mentioned by the agent is Tawana's boyfriend, Trevor Kennedy. Charlie didn't think much about it and said directly, you go and do your work. Don't worry about me, I'll just stand here. The agent handed him 2 badges and said, Mr. Wade, these 2 badges are exclusive to special consultants. And there are anti-counterfeiting chips in them. After you and your lover wear them, you can enter and exit any area of the performance venue at will. Moreover, this badge is universal for this concert. Not only for today's concert, but also for the next 19 concerts. Charlie took it and said with a smile, Thank you. The agent said again, if you need more badges, let me know at any time and I will customize them for you. If there is anything wrong with these 2 badges, Please tell me and I can help you reapply. And then invalidate the ones you threw away. Okay. Chapter 66-77. Charlie watched for a while from the audience. Tawana on the stage had already started to perform with the dance team. Although the weather was cold today, Tawana's clothes were very thin and bold. Charlie didn't know what kind of clothes she was wearing. It looked like the clothes of female gymnasts in the Olympics. Her legs were almost completely exposed to the air. Although her legs were long, they were not slender. Instead, they were very muscular and had a strong feeling. Charlie couldn't help but sigh in his heart. One was that Western women's clothing style was indeed hotter. And the other was that they were more resistant to cold. When he was bored, Pollard suddenly appeared and greeted him with a smile. "Why did Mr. Wade come so early?" Charlie smiled and said, "Uncle. You can just call me by my name, no need to call me Mr. This and that." Pollard said seriously, "I wanted to call you Master. But I was afraid of causing trouble for you." Charlie had no choice but to ask him, "Uncle, how is our preparation going? The audience admission today is a big test." Pollard nodded and said, "We opened 6 gates today. A total of 18 ticket inspection channels. And the requirement is to bring original ID cards or passports. There are also facial recognition equipment on site. So there should be no problem." Charlie heard about facial recognition and said, "I forgot to let our own AI participate. It will definitely provide considerable help, right?" Pollard said, "At present, our domestic facial recognition is still good. In the past, many celebrity concerts often caught fugitives, thanks to facial recognition. We also installed this system today. If it is not the real person, there is almost no possibility of sneaking in. Unless the two people look very similar. If this is the case, then we will admit it. Because any rule will definitely have loopholes." "Yes?" Charlie nodded and said with a smile. "As long as we do a good job in the first few scenes. There will be fewer and fewer people trying to get away with it later." Then he asked Pollard, "Where is Aunt Han?" Pollard said, "She is in the company. She has a lot of work recently. We have been cooperating with many suppliers and contractors. Legal work is the top priority for now." Charlie nodded in understanding. At this time, Tawana and the dancers finished a scene and happened to see Charlie not far from the stage. She said on the intercom, "Everyone, take a break for 20 minutes, we will start again later." In this team, she is the absolute core. When she said to rest, everyone from the dancers to other staff members clapped their hands at the same time. And then immediately went into a rest state. Tawana jumped down from the T-shaped stage more than 1 meter high. And without bothering to put on clothes, she strode towards Charlie. Pollard saw Tawana coming, so he said to Charlie, "I will go and touch the details with our people." After saying that, he turned around and left quickly. Tawana came to Charlie and smiled happily. "When did Mr. Wade arrive?" Charlie said, "I just arrived." After that, seeing that she was still wearing such thin clothes, he asked her, "Aren't you cold? Wearing so little?" Tawana smiled generously and said, "I'm used to it. Generally, I exercise a lot on the stage. And it will be hotter if I wear more." Charlie nodded and asked her, "Have all the people you asked me to invite arrived?" Tawana shook her head and said, "I'm really not sure about this. It seems that they all contacted Mr. Rothschild later." "Okay." Charlie said, "I'll ask him." After that, he called Steve. After Steve answered the phone, Charlie asked him directly, "Steve, have the guests I asked you to invite arrived?" "Mr. Wade, they are almost here." Steve said, "There are 12 people in total. 8 have arrived, and the remaining 4 will arrive before dark. Chapter 66-78. Charlie hummed and instructed. The celebration banquet will start at 11 o'clock in the evening. And the venue is at Classic Mansion. Go there early to help me entertain these guests. No problem. Charlie said to Tawana, after the performance tonight. You can go directly to Classic Mansion. Steve will be waiting for you there. Tawana asked nervously. Then will you come over there tonight, Mr. Wade? Charlie said, I will, but I have to send my wife home first. So I will meet you there later. When you arrive, you can invite them to dinner with Steve. Before I arrive, there is no need to talk or chat about anything. Let's talk about it after I arrive. Tawana was relieved a little and said, Okay, Mr. Wade. Trevor, who was resting in the backstage, saw the team of dancers coming back to rest. So he pulled someone and asked, Are you done with the rehearsal? The dancer answered him. Ms. Sweet said to rest for 20 minutes first. Trevor asked curiously, Why didn't she come back? The dancer said, She is chatting with someone. Someone? Trevor was confused. So he came to the performance site and saw Tawana chatting with Charlie. And he couldn't help feeling a little sour. Then, he adjusted his mood and walked towards the two of them. Seeing him coming, Charlie smiled and greeted him. Trevor also said politely, Mr. Wade, you came so early. Charlie nodded and asked him, Have you decided when to return to the United States? Trevor said, I have communicated with the coach. The latest is tomorrow night. In this way, I can accompany Tawana to finish the performance tomorrow. Charlie extended his hand to him and said with a smile, Then welcome you to return to China as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Wade, I will do it as soon as possible. Hearing Charlie's words, Trevor's jealousy was slightly relieved. He could hear that Charlie hoped that he and Tawana would have a happy ending. This was somewhat comforting. After all, Charlie would become a man that Tawana could never touch. What he wanted was Tawana's person. As for who she was thinking about in her heart, he could turn a blind eye. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the traffic in the whole of Oris Hill was already jammed. At least hundreds of thousands of people rushed to the Olympic Center one after another. Those with tickets and those without tickets gathered in the square. The whole square was crowded with people. And there was no place to stay. Claire, who came by subway, squeezed several subways before finally getting on the train and arrived at the venue in a mess. Charlie came out to pick her up and took her backstage through the staff's dedicated passage. At this time, Tawana had already started to put on makeup. Charlie took Claire directly to Tawana's personal lounge. Seeing Claire, Tawana, who was putting on makeup, waved to her very enthusiastically and said in surprise, Mrs. Wade, you are finally here. Claire was still a little reserved and asked carefully, Miss Sweet, we are coming here, right? Tawana smiled and said, How could it be? I just asked Mr. Wade why you haven't arrived yet. Come on, Mrs. Wade. Do you want to take a few photos together as a souvenir? For Tawana, she knows very well what her fans like and how to make her fans happy. Putting down the celebrity status, getting along with fans like friends, and even actively inviting them to get closer to themselves is the happiest thing for fans. Claire only has two favorite female singers. One is Saa and the other is Tawana. So when she saw Tawana's friendly side, she was very excited and said quickly, There's no rush to take a photo, you go ahead. Tawana asked the makeup artist to stop putting on makeup, picked up her phone and said, Come on, Mrs. Wade, I have several very beautiful filters on my phone. We can take a few selfies together. Let's add WeChat later, and I'll send the photos to you. Chapter 66-79. Tawana was very polite to Claire. The two took many photos together and added each other as WeChat friends. Charlie saw that Tawana was too enthusiastic about Claire. But he didn't think much about it. After Tawana finished her makeup for the performance, her styling team began to confirm with her the arrangement of the costumes for tonight's performance and the details of the change of clothes. Charlie felt bored and walked out alone. At this time, all the staff were busy preparing for the performance. There was a huge electronic clock backstage, but it did not show the current time, but the countdown to the opening. When there were still 2 hours left in the countdown, the audience waiting to enter the venue began to enter. A large number of staff members pre-checked tickets outside the channel. They were not responsible for checking whether the person, certificate, and ticket were consistent. They mainly let the audience with tickets pass through first and isolate the audience without tickets outside the safe area. In this way, the pressure on the ticket-checking channel can be greatly reduced. At this time, more than a dozen ticket inspection channels have been divided according to the area. Different seats must be inspected at the designated channels. This can effectively divide the crowd and prevent a large number of people from gathering at a certain entrance, causing local pressure. The face recognition system also played a very critical role at this time. Domestic audiences swipe their ID cards, check tickets, and perform face recognition. Meanwhile, foreign audiences use their passports for facial recognition. Most of the audience can pass smoothly and enter the performance venue in an orderly manner with their tickets. A small number of audiences who traded tickets privately were prohibited from entering because they did not meet the requirements of identity verification. Some people even wanted to make trouble and throw a tantrum on the scene in exchange for the opportunity to enter. However, they did not expect that the Jinling police would also provide very favorable support for this performance. Those who disrupted the order were immediately taken away by the police. At 6:30, most of the audience had entered and sat in their seats. Tawana's music was also played on the scene as a warm-up. From this moment on, those fanatical fans sang in chorus with great enthusiasm. At 7 o'clock, there was still half an hour left before the performance began. Tawana has finished her makeup for the show and started to take deep breaths and do voice exercises. It is said that this is a necessary warming up before the performance, which can quickly get the throat into the best condition. At this time, the LED screen dozens of meters high began to light up. On the screen, the promotional video of Tawana's global tour was played, with mixed clips of performance clips, live clips, rehearsal clips, and clips of traveling around for performances. For her fans, these contents are very precious. So many people took out their mobile phones to watch and take pictures. And some fans even cried while watching. 7:20. All the band members and dancers were ready to go on stage backstage. Tawana, wearing a gorgeous and shining performance costume, has also been ready to go on stage backstage. Interestingly, the band members have to go on stage from the end of the T stage, while Tawana needs to go to the front of the T stage and take a hidden elevator to go on stage. The interior of the entire T stage was a huge hollow. Charlie felt like a miner in a mine, surrounded by steel frames for support. In the middle, there was a passage that required bending over to walk through. At the end of the passage, there was a circular elevator. Escorted by the staff, Tawana ran quickly to the bottom of the elevator. Claire was nervous and expectant, and a little curious. So he pulled Charlie to follow behind to join in the fun. The diameter of the circular elevator was only a little over 1 meter. Tawana knelt on one knee on the elevator, with the front end of the T stage above her head, in order to prevent fans from finding anything unusual. The top was sealed with opaque paper to ensure that the entire T stage surface was very consistent from the outside, so that her appearance would have an unexpected effect. Chapter 66-80. Tawana, who was kneeling on one knee on the lift platform, had already made all the preparations. The stylist checked her makeup and hairstyle for the last time. After confirming that everything was fine, he made an okay gesture to her and then retreated from the safe range of the lift platform. Tawana's assistant handed a silver wireless microphone inlaid with crystals to Tawana. The microphone was already turned on. However, the sound engineer did not transmit the volume of the microphone to the stage before she appeared. So even if he held the microphone there now, no sound could be heard from outside. Tawana took the microphone, and the assistant reminded her. The last 2 minutes of the opening countdown. Tawana saw Charlie and Claire behind the crowd, waved to them, and said with a smile, "I'm going up soon. You can wait for me behind the T stage. I will go back after singing the second half of the first song." Claire clenched his fist and said to her, "Come on." Charlie was a little embarrassed at this time. The reason for the embarrassment was that he really couldn't appreciate Tawana's performance costume. It was a long-sleeved tight sequin top. But it was like Superman's costume, with a pair of briefs connected to it, and made into a one-piece shape. And Tawana didn't wear stockings, her lower body was completely in a bikini shape. And she was kneeling on one knee and squatting there. Charlie was too embarrassed to look at her, after all. Chinese people still pay attention to a sense of decency. Seeing that Charlie's eyes were always wandering above her head, Tawana waved at him and said, "Mr. Wade, see you later." Charlie nodded awkwardly and said, "Okay, see you later." After that, he whispered to Claire, "Wife, what exactly is this kind of clothes? A long-sleeved t-shirt with briefs, why does it look so awkward?" Claire was also a little embarrassed and whispered, "This should be her own personal hobby. I don't know what this kind of clothes is called." Charlie asked again, "But how should this kind of clothes be worn?" "Put your feet in through the collar and put them up." "Of course." Claire said, "This is the same logic as wearing a one-piece swimsuit." As he said that, Claire remembered something and said quickly, "This should be the inspiration found in the swimsuit, right?" Charlie asked, "Should it be called a long-sleeved bikini?" "What the hell?" Claire patted him lightly and said, "Don't talk nonsense in the future, lest someone hears it." At this time, the speakers outside had begun playing the deafening opening music. The cheers and shouts of the fans were even more deafening. With 20 seconds left before the show started, the prelude of Tawana's hit song suddenly played. At this time, the staff shouted loudly, 15 seconds countdown. Tawana lowered her head, holding the microphone in one hand and touching the ground with the other. The music was getting louder and louder, and the staff could no longer hear what they were saying. They could only shout and stretch out 5 fingers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The elevator suddenly started and pushed Tawana directly onto the T stage at a very fast speed. Tawana used her back to push open the paper sealing the exit. The moment the sealing paper was pushed open, Charlie saw the brilliant fireworks that exploded outside. At this moment, the screams of the audience went straight to the sky.